Latvijsku minunam hirgamast hierök līvakielkaks. Ama ežmaks iepierast, ko līvakieli tempā būs eļļi kieli, mis rištīn kievāmstīs kūlab ielpēl tramvajs agā boģis. Bet, kā iepierast, ko sevam kad mednīži. This was Livonian. This is indigenous language of Latvia, spoken today by less than 20 fluent speakers. A language that has been stubbornly declared extinct for over past 200 years. Of course, over the time, the Livonian situation changed. We lost lots of people. We lost, in many ways, our language. So in mid-19th century, there was around 2,000 Livonians still there. And the community is still approximately 1,000 to 2,000. We just don't have so much speakers. However, this is what makes Livonian really interesting, because Livonian represents two different things at the same time. So Livonians are like a living fossil, something that has been over here for thousands of years, also keeping the heritage, which is pretty unique and has very many ancient elements in it. So at the same time, because of the history, Livonians have also become very modern nation. We lost our land completely 80 years ago due to the Soviet occupation. So today, Livonians are kind of scattered all across Latvia. Since then, becoming maybe virtualized, becoming a virtualized community long before all the coming of the internet. So now, contemporary Livonian community is really very diverse, very disconnected in many ways, however, at the same time, very keen to continue itself. And very keen to use everything that modern times offer. One question that pops up time to time when speaking about those small language and cultural communities, what's the point in ages of globalization, of opening borders, of all the digital domains coming in? What's the point of keeping such communities running? And I think that this question was best answered by another Livonian whom I met first time 15 years ago when she was 100, living in Canada. And when I met her for second time, she was 102 years old. And we just had having a chat about other people we know commonly. Then at one moment I asked her, how come that after 80 years, you not being able almost at all talk in Livonian, you still speak like you left Livonian coast yesterday? She thought for a while and then she said, well, that's my language, that's who I am. How can I forget it? And that kind of effectively covers the question, because language, culture, community that we come from, they shape who we are. They shape not only what heritage we carry, but also how we see the world, how we approach the world, how we create solutions to whatever comes our way. And we have, as a humankind, over past decades especially, we have mastered this concept of biodiversity. So there is a kind of a clear understanding in society that all the birds and insects and animals, they all have their role in keeping world and earth healthy. The one thing that is yet to be mastered is that the same is true about languages and cultures, because we do need this kind of diversity of languages and cultures the same way to keep humankind healthy for the future. We need that diversity in approaches, diversity of perceptions, perspectives, diversity of thought to keep the world a place where there's innovation, where there's a creativeness, and which moves forward into the future. Sustaining small communities, and that is all the question is about, like how to sustain those communities in the future. this sustaining goes beyond just languages and cultures, because if we think that we all come from one or another kind of small community, be it our village, our city block, or our family, or even our internet bubble. So these are all kind of small communities, and what is really interesting, that those small communities, especially like Livonian, so they are kind of a fractals. These are scalable things that you can look at them and really see how those how communities work in general, and those processes can be projected. But there is one small catch at it, and it is the scale. There are things that we take for granted for big communities, and things that just don't work in case of small communities. One such thing is language transmission, for example, or language learning. So you cannot find, for a community like Livonian, which is completely scattered and small, you cannot find a single school where there would be more than 2 Livonian children. So you obviously cannot do this process of learning through the school system. You need different approaches. Another difference between big and small, and which is kind of clearly visible in Livonian case, is that sustaining small community needs conscious actions. So you don't need to care so much about future of English. So it is kind of self-sustainable. German, French, you have to do some more effort regarding Estonian, Latvian, Finnish. But when it comes to small communities, so this is where you really need those conscious actions to move forward. So it's basically, it's just like driving a car. So if you want to drive for a longer time, you obviously at the one moment you have to grab the steering wheel and start kind of guide it. If you don't, just question how far the next tree is. Another direction coming regarding sustainability, where the conscious action is needed, is sustaining those small communities in digital age. So the coming digital age is something that has already changed the world forever. The technology is here, and technology is not anymore in computers, but it lives everywhere. It's in a fridge, in a car, in smart house, wherever. And there has been this perception, especially in some remote communities, that, well, this is kind of a new domain. This is a very complicated domain, and we want to stay out of it. We want to stay isolated. We want to stay where we are, just protected in our remoteness. The problem being that it is a little bit illusion, because the moment the first smartphone arrives, all the isolation is gone, and it's gone forever. And you must be prepared. So you must understand how to create those digital instruments for communities which work different way. So this is what we do at our institute, University of Latvia Livonian Institute. We work and we contribute pretty much in development of digital resources for that particular reason. But the good news is that technology nowadays, we see clear movement of technology becoming more and more personalized. We saw it with emergence of social networks, but especially we see now it with AI solutions or large language models, which are first truly tailorable technology intended to serve not kind of a big group, but each individual person. But again, the issue here is that technology is basically just an instrument. So it's just like a hammer, which is very good. It's perfect for smashing things alone. However, if you want to build something, what you need also some kind of materials, which for technology is data. And data is something that is very hard for small communities to gather. For example, all the books that are published in Livonian over the time of the history is approximately the same amount which Estonian publishers publish in less than a month. So you obviously disadvantage is there. So what we do, and one approach that we use, is based deeply in kind of Livonian heritage, in food, to be precise. So there is this traditional way of cooking food in Livonian families, especially in the winter time. So when you don't have very much of food available, so once you boil potatoes, you simply you don't throw out the water. You put it into another bowl. You add some potatoes, add some ingredients, and then you have a soup. So the same principle we are applying towards the data, where we get more information out of the same data amount by simply not throwing the data away. So, but generally, I extremely like those times we live, because technology offers to us something completely new. And at our institute, we approach technology as a prosthetics, doing the same things that prosthetics do in medicine, because what prosthetics offer is they return ability to the people, ability to walk, ability to see, to hear, to feel. And the same technology can offer for those small communities, because if you need to bring people together, if you don't have a land where they meet or space where they meet, so the virtual space is the first thing that helps you. And these are the best times actually for small communities. And not only because of that prosthetic thing, but also because it has never been so easy to publish things, to get things out to the bigger, wider world, so to get people together, to get to stages that sometimes would feel like impossible, to teach language. Another thing, however, here is that community is not just a consumer of those digital tools. Community is also a very important part, plays a very important part in the creative process. A couple of years ago, we launched what is called Virtual Language Speaker Involvement Program. And this is the program where we try to involve Livonian language speakers in different tasks regarding Livonian language, being transcribing texts or giving the voice for voice synthesis or teaching Livonian to others and create new music videos for kids. And with this program, what has emerged that it has been beneficial both ways. So what we get out of it is proficiency of Livonian. So this is a resource which is so unique that only 20 people possess. But what they get back is that they get opportunity to spend their days in Livonian language environment. And what the direct result of that you see those language cells emerging, and our institute starting partially also working in some areas in Livonian, using Livonian language as a working language. So now coming back to us, because the digital thing is one, but the sustaining actually starts really on the ground. The one question that is asked very often regarding Livonian is, how come that Livonian has disappeared? And, well, I find that question annoying, because disappearing is easy. You do nothing. Or if you want it faster, you just go out, stand in the middle of the street and wait for a bus to hit you. But if you, and I tend to turn this question around. So how come that Livonians are still here? In past 200 years, there have been several moments that it was clear that no, that's it. So that is now the Livonian should be over completely. And the first answer is that maybe the secret ingredient is not stopping. After the Second World War, but due to the Soviet occupation, Livonians lost their land completely. Then initially there was this feeling of despair. So now we are kind of dispersed all across the land, and we most probably will never kind of meet again. However, in 50s, compilation of first book started. In 60s, people started to come together. It got a little bit easier. They started to come together at birthday parties and talk Livonian in those birthday parties. The problem being that next day, those birthday parties used to move to KGB headquarters because they also wanted to know what was discussed at this meeting of the people who speak language that nobody understands. And then in 70s, there was a group that thought that, well, we have to kind of legalize it. We cannot continue like this. So they created 2 singing groups in both those bigger centers where Livonian community settled. And these were just technically singing groups. It was, yes, they were singing, but proficiency in singing was not important. The idea was that these were the places where you could legally come to use your language, learn your language, and continue the cultural process. This is something that efficiently brought Livonians through the Soviet times. However, we won the battle because we are still here and Soviet Union isn't. So another thing, and at the very core of that movement and not stopping, is actually creativity. At every moment when you look back in Livonian history, you see that there new stuff is being created. And this has been kind of central to resilience and continuity of the community. So even today, this Livonian community, which is around 1,000, you can see all kinds of modern culture elements in it. So you have modern dance, you have 8 singing or musical groups all the way from traditional music to the rap. You have theatrical plays, you have 4 poets out of 20 Livonian speakers writing Livonian, you have different artworks, and this is what feels for me, it is being a core of that Livonian moving forward and Livonian staying in time. So if we think about sustaining those small communities, sometimes what we are talking about is roots. There is this idea that we need to keep roots, and it's important that we rely on, because tree cannot live without roots. And that is true. However, the another thing is also true, that tree cannot live without trunk, without leaves and blossoms. So whenever the modern culture, new things are born, then the existence of that small community is continued. Because if we don't create new things today, in 50, 100 years, there will be nothing to protect regarding of what has happened today. So basically, today's creative process is a heritage of tomorrow.